Well, how do you get away with this over a long period? Well, one way is you try to disguise how much the money is depreciating. And in recent years, since the Clinton administration, the Department of Labor, again, I mean, who knows, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, has modified the methodology for computing the CPI 4 times. There's a guy who's a famed foundation scholar for my organization. His name is John Williams, and he calculates something called the alternate CPI based on this original methodology that was used during the Clinton years. Now let me put up the next slide, please. And what Mr. Williams has been able to show using a consistent methodology, his line is the blue line. Okay? The red line is the line that the government uses. And as you can see, starting around in the 1990s, using the consistent methodology, the CPI would be more than twice as high as it is now. More than twice as high. Come back to me, please. I mean, one of the results of all this is that people who have Social Security benefits that are key to the CPI, or disabled veterans benefits, or cost of living increases in their union contracts, they are being cheated. And they're not being cheated out of a small amount. They're being cheated out of roughly half of what they should have gotten. So if you're getting Social Security, say, $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a year, if this was calculated honestly, you'd be getting, say, $25,000, $30,000 a year. That ought to be quite a difference to ordinary people. And again, this is a result of the money creation. And again, the money creation feeds the capital markets, which feeds the fees to the Wall Street crowd. But they're not even satisfied with that. And they've made a whole bunch of other series of kinds of bets called derivative bets. And this is where this so-called, I shouldn't say so-called, this is where modern portfolio theory just falls in the mud. It's totally worthless. Because the derivatives, which now are approaching something on the order of $400 trillion, are in fact guaranteed by you. How do you do that? I mean, you've not signed up for that. Your elected representatives haven't overtly obligated you to guarantee the derivatives. Now let's just take a look at how many derivatives are outstanding. Put up the next slide, please. So in 1990, and these numbers, by the way, come from the Bank for International Settlements. In 1990, the amount of derivatives outstanding, and these were primarily futures options on agricultural products, maybe oil, were on the order of maybe $10 billion. $10 trillion. Today, it's pushing $400 trillion. Now, of that 400 trillion, these are worldwide numbers. You can come back to me, please. Of that $400 trillion, roughly 130 trillion is in the United States. And of that 130 trillion, according to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which puts out a report biannually, roughly 125 trillion of that 130 trillion in the United States is in just 3 banks. J.P. Morgan, Citibank, and Bank America. Now, how do their balance? Now, they're not set up to absorb losses should something go wrong. And they've stress tested this generally on the order of 50 basis points, half a percentage point. Half a percentage point of 125 trillion is roughly it's roughly 6 billion. They don't even have roughly 6 trillion. They don't even have $1 trillion between them on their balance sheets. They don't own $1 trillion. So who's on the hook for this if something goes wrong? And the answer is it's you. And the reason it's you is because the banks, as a practical matter, are protected by the so-called lender of last resort at the Federal Reserve. And the notion is that they can't let the banks go under because the banks control the payment transfer system, and if a major bank went bankrupt, then there'd be chaos. So the banks, by the way, in addition to the Wall Street guys, are making profits for themselves. They take in roughly $500+ billion. They make profits on the order of $120 billion, again, just for moving the paper around. All this is coming out of, in effect, your retirement savings. Either it's coming out in fees or it's coming out in the depreciation. Now, let me give you another example of how much the money has depreciated. Put up the next chart, please. The next chart after this one. This shows the price level in the United States going back to the year 1800. And as you can see on the left-hand side, that's when we were pretty much on what we call the commodity standard, where the money was redeemable or convertible into gold at one price or another. But after that disappeared, you can see that the price level in the United States took off, and that price level, that corresponds to the CPI, and that is even understated. And in effect, the money has depreciated probably on the order of 98% since the Federal Reserve came into being in 1913. You can come back to me, please. All of this has worked to the disadvantage of ordinary people. Your savings that you have for retirement, that in effect is stored labor. So you work and you have to save for later, because there comes a time in life when you can't work. How are you going to support yourself? So you have to have savings. So what happens now, you work now and you get money and you save it for later. Now the union guys were really on this very hard at the turn of the 19th century, and they said, we want money that doesn't depreciate at home or abroad. If money depreciates, you're losing your labor. If it's being depreciated by someone who's creating money out of nothing, they're stealing your labor. Now let me show you this. I just one or two more slides to show you. This is the next slide, please. This will give you a feel for how much the financial sector has profited from this money creation, not counting the fees and commissions, that $330 billion that I mentioned to you early on. This chart shows the growth of the value of the financial sector firms. In 1980, not so long ago, the total money supply in this country was around $2 trillion. The total value of the 500 most valuable companies, called the publicly traded companies, called the S&P 500, was valued at $1 trillion. And the financial sector, you can't even see it on the left, was 5% of that, roughly $50 billion. So you zip ahead to 2005. Now they've created another $8 trillion. So now the total amount of money created out of nothing is $10 trillion. And now the value of the 500 most valuable companies is $10 trillion. But now the financial sector component to that is 23%, $2.3 trillion. So they have gone, come back to me, please. So the value of their companies have gone from roughly $50 billion to $2.3 trillion. And all along the way, they've been taking out hundreds of billions of dollars in salaries and bonuses. I see we're coming to the end of the show. Well, how do you protect yourself with this? And the answer is with gold. Put up the next slide, please, while you're rolling the credits. They don't want you to have gold. And they have made it very, very difficult for people to get gold, and they've had their experts badmouth gold. Come back to me, please. I'm going to continue on this theme. You can take the credits off, Gloria. I'm going to come back to this theme in future programs, but really what I wanted you to get out of today is that the amount of money that you have in retirement, to the extent that it's with major companies or with, say, the New York State pension plan, it is being mismanaged. Mismanaged according to a bogus theory, and the whole purpose of all of this is to generate fees for Wall Street and the financial world. Well, I'm coming right down to the end now. I want to thank you again for watching the Larry Parks Show. I'm Larry Parks. Please tune in again next week. Thank you very much, and good night.